If you're sitting at home right now wondering if you're ahead or behind the curve, you've probably done what most people do. You've looked at the house your mates just bought, or you've noticed the brand new SUV in your neighbor's driveway, and you've made a guess. But the truth is, looking at what people spend tells you absolutely nothing about what they actually own. In April 2026, the gap between looking rich and being wealthy in Australia has never been wider. Today, I'm going to break down the real net worth numbers for every age bracket in Australia, the massive difference between the average and the median, and the one hidden asset that is currently doing 80% of the heavy lifting for the nation's wealthiest households. Before we look at the brackets, we have to talk about the mean trap. If you look at the latest 2026 data from the ABS and KPMG, the average household net worth in Australia has climbed to just over $1.1 million. On paper, that sounds like we're a nation of millionaires. But here's the catch. The average is a terrible way to measure your own progress. If a billionaire walks into a local pub, the average net worth of everyone in that room instantly jumps to $100 million, even if everyone else is struggling to pay for their next round of drinks. That's why today we're focusing on the median. The median is the true middle. If you lined up every Australian in your age group from poorest to richest, the person in the very middle is the median. And in 2026, the difference between that average and the median isn't just a gap, it's a canyon. Let's start with the 25 to 34 age bracket. If you're in this group, you've likely felt the brunt of the 2026 rental crisis and the HEX indexation spikes. According to the latest figures, the median net worth for this group is approximately $92,000, but the average is sitting way higher, at over $550,000. Why? Because this is the age where the inheritance lottery starts to kick in. A small number of 30-somethings have been gifted house deposits or have inherited family property, which drags the average up, while the median person is still grinding away at their first $100,000. In this bracket, your net worth is almost entirely tied to two things. Your super balance, which, for a 30-year-old male, is now averaging $82,800, and whatever you've managed to scrape together in a high-interest savings account. Moving into the 35 to 44 bracket, things start to get serious. This is the decade of the Great Divide. The median net worth here jumps to roughly $410,000. This is the point where property ownership becomes the single biggest factor in your financial health. If you manage to get into the market before the 2024-2025 price surge, your net worth has likely exploded on paper. For this group, the average home equity, that's the value of the house minus the mortgage, is now hovering around $140,000. If you're still renting in your late 30s, you might feel like you're falling behind. But remember that the median super balance for this age is also climbing, sitting at roughly $130,000 for men and $87,000 for women. Now, let's look at the 45 to 54 bracket. This is where compounding interest finally starts to do the heavy lifting. The median net worth for this group has hit $610,000, but the average has rocketed to over $2 million. This is where the hidden insight comes into play. For Australians in their 50s, property isn't just a place to live anymore, it's a wealth machine. According to KPMG's 2026 report, Gen X now holds more wealth in dwellings and land than any other generation, averaging $1.44 million in property assets. This is also the decade where the gender super gap becomes most visible, with the average male balance at $281,000 compared to $188,000 for women. Once we hit the 55 to 64 bracket, we reach the peak of Australian wealth. The median net worth here is $820,000. This is the pre-retirement sweet spot. Most of the people in this group have been in the workforce for 30-plus years. They've seen their super grow at 12%, and many have finally killed off their mortgages. In 2026, the average household in this age group has over $750,000 sitting in super and insurance reserves. But here's the move that nobody talks about: the great reallocation. In 2026, we're seeing a massive shift where boomers and older Gen Xers are moving their wealth out of property and into cash and shares. Why? Because they've realized that you can't eat a brick. Having a $3 million house in Glen Waverley or Mosman is great for your net worth, but it doesn't pay for a holiday or a comfortable retirement. This generation now holds an average of $220,000 in cash and deposits, often sitting in offset accounts, and roughly $180,000 in direct shares. So, after looking at all these hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars, what does it mean for you? First, being behind doesn't mean you've missed your chance. If your net worth is lower than the median for your age, It usually isn't because you're bad with money. It's often because of timing. The people at the top of these brackets didn't necessarily work harder than you. They often just bought property at a different point in the cycle, or started their careers when HECS debt didn't exist. Second, the most expensive decision you can make in 2026 is to ignore your super. For the vast majority of Australians, superannuation will be the second largest asset they ever own, and for renters, it will be the first. Even if you don't own a home, hitting those super benchmarks, $44,000 by age 29, $130,000 by 39, is the most reliable way to ensure you aren't left behind. Finally, remember that net worth is just a scoreboard, and the game is long. In Australia, your wealth tends to follow a very specific J-curve. It looks flat and boring in your 20s and 30s while you're paying off debt and building a deposit. But once you hit your 40s and 50s, the combination of home equity and compounding super starts to pull serious weight. Being rich isn't about hitting a specific number by a specific birthday. It's about having the freedom to live your life on your own terms. Whether you're at the median, above it, or just starting out, every dollar you save and invest today is a brick in the wall of your future financial independence, and that's completely fine. If you found this useful, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.